During the COVID-19 crisis, we have witnessed a dramatic increase in racism and antisemitism and hate speech worldwide. And so this global event is as important as ever. I commend the March of Life organization for bringing peace back to the streets and for publicly standing for reconciliation instead of hate. Together we will prevail. Wishing you much success in all your efforts. Shalom from Jerusalem.
Herzlich willkommen heute Abend zum Online-Event.
Welcome to this online event, online memorial, on occasion of the Jewish-Israeli Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, and I'm so glad to have you with us. Today is the beginning of our special program that is actually taking place worldwide in 105 different places in more than 25 nations, and we'll have all the names on the bottom of the screen, and you can see them. And I'm so glad to have so many representatives of the nations here with us already. You can show them on the screen. We'll hear from you. We'll hear statements from the nations. I can see Ben Salomon. Hi, great to have you here. And many, many friends more. We'll commemorate together, we'll raise our voices together, and it's so special that we can do that. Even in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, we can still raise our voices today. And we, of course, keep to all the restrictions, but we will not be silent, and we'll raise our voices. Here in Tübingen, we were on the street just now, on the market square, and we had a wonderful remembrance event with a Holocaust survivor there. We had a march, always 2 by 2 from Wankheim, which is a village close by, into Tübingen. And in this way, we have events all over the world, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. And we will commemorate together now. I'm very glad that Sara Granitza will be with us in a moment from Yad Vashem to share. And we were reading names of the victims of the Holocaust in cooperation with Yad Vashem in so many places. So we'll be really looking forward to this meeting. We'll have a word of greeting by Rav Lau, former Chief Rabbi of Israel, and also Sharon Haskell, member of Knesset. We'll hear the story of Holocaust survivor Helena Weinrauch, and we'll also have a special with Jonathan Ben Salomon, who's with us already, and so we're looking forward to this time together. This event is translated into 7 different languages, in German, English, French, Italian, Polish, Spanish, and Russian. Great to have you with us. And we begin here with a song, Shalom Aleichem, and then we'll continue with the event.
הקדוש ברוך הוא בכם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי עליון מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך
To welcome all of you here at this conference. And it's a great privilege to be together here. I think we have representatives and participants from over 20 nations. We have commemorated Yom HaShoah with events in more than 100 different cities. And especially I would like to send my greetings to Israel, to our director, Igal Evan-Ziv. A very warm welcome to you. And just by way of introduction, let me say a few things, because Yom HaShoah is a very special day today. It's the Israeli National Day of Commemoration for the victims of the Shoah. And at the same time, they remember the Jewish resistance and the Jewish heroes who fought in the underground movement. And in the camps of Auschwitz, Treblinka, Majdanek, Sobibor, Chelmu, and Belzec, and in the 7 death camps where tens of thousands of people were robbed of their human dignity, they were robbed, they were murdered and tortured. Millions of people died in the ghettos, in mass executions and on death marches. And many times this can be just a huge number. But the victims were grandfathers, fathers, mothers and children. Every single one of them had a name that must never be forgotten. And their voices have not fallen silent to this day. The systematic mass murder was the culmination of the Nazi racial ideology. In the face of this unspeakable pain and suffering caused to the Holocaust victims and their descendants by the Germans, we as Germans, especially coming from the city of Tübingen, can only humble ourselves. And Tübingen is the place where this conference is coming from. And we can only stand in friendship with Israel. And the question is, why can this ghost of anti-Semitism not be cast out of Germany? And why is this National Socialist racial ideology still visible in Germany, and that suppressed everything that didn't go along with their racial ideology? And today it is seen in cancel culture and racial identity politics once again. The German Protection for the Interior published a study in recent years, and they reached the conclusion, in the face of all these anti-Semitic incidents, they have discovered that 1 in 4 Germans has anti-Semitic thoughts and attitudes. But I tell you, it's nothing specific to Germany, because in South America, and other countries, it's no different. There's a worldwide rise of 70% in an increase in anti-Jewish crimes and incidents. So anti-Judaism is not a fringe phenomenon of extremists. But the Professor Dr. Monika Schwarz in Berlin said that despite the fact that anti-Semitism has a home in right and left-wing extremism, it still is already found in the center of society. And there is another quote here. Anti-Semitism is deeply rooted in the center of society. And there is Samuel Salzborn, a commissioner against anti-Semitism. He asks, how is it that despite all the education efforts in schools, 40% of the German youth don't know what happened in Auschwitz? And at the moment, 1 in 4 Germans still harbors anti-Semitic attitudes. And the answer is simple. Anti-Semitism is gaining impetus in Germany without any restrictions, because there never, and that's a quote, there never has been a critical working through of the past in our families. And so the decades of refusing remembrance, the silence has fallen over the families. And that actually takes us to history. Why we have this conference and events against anti-Semitism, because what's hiding behind silence in our families? And we discovered that silence in the face of modern anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews has the same dimensions as the silence of our fathers and grandfathers in the face of what happened back in the Nazi era. And so the descendants of the Nazis discovered the guilt of their ancestors and did not want to remain silent. They discovered their role in mass murders and deportations of Jews from villages and cities. Others had been officers in the SS. And they knew this is a story that we cannot cancel or revoke, but we can take responsibility and help for this history never to repeat itself. And this is what birthed the March of Life in 2007. So the grandchildren walked along the paths of the death marches and wanted to honor the survivors and ask forgiveness with words that their grandfathers never found. And so, as I mentioned, this conference here is held in Tübingen, and I've shared the story of our city many times, and I won't repeat it, but 2 or 3 facts. Already by 1933, the University of Tübingen was considered free of Jews, and it was the place of training for some of the main mass murderers and leaders of Einsatzgruppen who were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Jews. And the homepage of a website of our city says that Jewish life in Tübingen was marked by deportations, repression and persecution, and it's a dark chapter of our history. But today, and we are so grateful for that, the March of Life movement is actually coming from Tübingen. And I'm so grateful for all the media who are reporting this, but through our events, we've been able to reach millions of people. And so this year alone, we are having events in cooperation with Yad Vashem in over 100 cities, reading names, and they are making a joint statement against anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, and anti-Zionism. But my friends, that's not enough by far. And therefore, we cry out, every city, every nation, every country has to have marches of life, and so much more needs to happen. And so we stand for remembrance because we want to honor survivors of the Holocaust. And this is the heart piece here. We want to honor the survivors. And with the marches of remembrance, we commemorate the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust. And we want to bring reconciliation. That means that healing and restoration of relationships between the victims and descendants of the perpetrators. We need to make such a statement. We can't stop by the past, but we need to look forward and make a statement. And that means having public events, marches of life on the street to make a statement of solidarity with Israel and against anti-Semitism. That's what we represent as March of Life. And so we encourage you, if you are joining us here, listening to this conference, become active yourself. Don't just listen. Don't just say never again, but be active yourself personally, very practically, wherever you live. I am so grateful. I think it was 2 years ago that we were able to meet Rav Meir Lau, former chief rabbi of the state of Israel. We met him 2 years ago in Israel, and personally we were able to meet him and get to know him. He's chief of the chairperson of the council of Yad Vashem, and it's a tremendous privilege for me that he supports us as March of Life and has sent us a word of greeting, and we will hear this word of greeting right now.
I have the honor to welcome you all, members of March of Life throughout Germany, to encourage your activities for the memory of the Holocaust, to express our opposition to all anti-Semites expressions and things that we have all over the world. If I have met in Melbourne, Australia, in 1982, 2 adults sitting in a car, when they saw me, my uniform as a rabbi, they didn't know that I'm a survivor of Buchenwald. They shouted to me, "Jews, did you pay the bill for the gas you used in the chambers?" We have to pay a bill. We have to pay for the gas of Auschwitz, Treblinka, Majdanek, Sobibor, Chlebno, Belzec. We have to pay the bill. In Australia, in 1982, so many years after the Holocaust, what an expression of anti-Semitism it is. If you are ready to take of your time and you pay attention and you feel how we owe to the memory of the Holocaust, to the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. This is an important step of a better humanity that you can show and you can represent. That's why we admire your activities. Nay, to take the names of those who have no children, to remember them. You can be the children of those who didn't leave a family, who went by the wind of hatred, of anti-Semitism. We understand our duty for the generations to come, not to forget what happened. This will be a sin above a sin if we will forget the horrors of the Holocaust. Don't forget. In the Jewish tradition, to remember is even a commandment. Look at the story of out of Egypt, the Passover, to celebrate a night and a whole week, telling the story of getting out from Egypt, from slavery to freedom. We remember details. What did we eat? What was the menu? And what was the language? And how did the Lord Almighty promise us to go out from slavery? Every word, every sentence is remembered. And we celebrate the Passover all over the world, and we never forget a story of 3,400 years. So of course the story of Holocaust, only 80 years ago, 75 years ago, we must remember, we ought not to forget. And if you give a hand to it, it's an holy task that you took over on your shoulders. That's why we encourage you and we admire your activity.
What an honor to have such a special word of greeting. So this was by Rabbi Israel Meir Lau, chair of the Council of Yad Vashem. Thank you so much for this special encouragement to carry on. And let me welcome now everyone who's joined our live stream here, our remembrance event on occasion of Yom HaShoah, our global activities and for a better future without anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. And here we are in the memorial event in 7 different languages. If you are on YouTube, you can see the other languages in the comments, and in the description of the video you can find the right language. And let me announce the next word of greeting by member of Knesset Sharon Haskell. She is chairperson of the Christian Allies Caucus, which cooperate with Christians all over the world who support Israel, and it's an honor to be linked to them, also with Josh Weinstein, who's the director, and now it's over to Sharon Haskell with her word of greeting.
It is my honor to join you at tonight's Yom HaShoah program. Each time that I'm invited to participate in a March of Life event, I'm always amazed at the strength of your organization. Your commitment to ensure that the memory of the Holocaust is not forgotten is something important to me as an Israeli Knesset member and personally as a Jew whose grandparents survived Auschwitz. Heinz Roos and Jobst and Charlotte Bittner, please know that I truly appreciate your leadership. The fact that you work together with Yad Vashem to mention the individual names of Holocaust survivors in public places throughout the world brings comfort to me, knowing that the memories of these victims will not be forgotten and that their death will not be in vain. You choose to not only commemorate their death, but to use their suffering as a reminder that we must do better. The attacks against Jews throughout 1940s happened because the majority of the observers were silent. They were too afraid to speak up for the truth, for morality, and for justice. Today, we must speak up whenever and wherever we see anti-Semitism, whether that comes in the form of persecution against Jewish people or against the one and only Jewish state. The fact that you have gathered representatives and leaders from over 25 nations in tonight's program to dream together about a better future without anti-Semitism and without Jew hatred is a wonderful accomplishment. Only if we work together will we be able to stem the tide of anti-Semitism and make a true impact on the future. Since the times of Abraham, the Jewish people have been committed to living a life of charity and justice in the land which God designated for them, to be a light unto the nations and make an impact on the greater world. And since day one, there have been enemies of the Jewish people who have tried to erase our nation, to deny our right to exist and our right to a homeland, and to spread hatred and lies about us. Today, with the flourishing and modern state of Israel, we have shown that we still heed to the vision of our forefathers. We have created the only democracy in the Middle East, a shining light in a very dark region. We have used this blessing to not only develop the homeland of the Jewish people, but also a haven of safety for minorities who live among us. When I served as a combat officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, my grandparents understood that we can now say never again with confidence. We will never allow the blood of the Jewish people to flow freely. We will protect our homeland with all our might, but we cannot do this alone. We can only be successful if we have the true partnership with the international community. I sincerely thank the March of Life organization for helping to cultivate the global voice against anti-Semitism. This year, your public marches will be small in numbers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But let this be a motivation for us to commit to double our efforts. We must speak up, whether that is on social media, in your workplaces, in your communities and home. We cannot be afraid to stand up for the truth. This year, we also should recognize that the thousands of Holocaust survivors who lived throughout the horrors of the Nazi regime, but unfortunately succumbed to the coronavirus disease. Since they are no longer here to share their stories, we must be their faithful messenger. We must pay careful attention to the stories and testimonies that we will hear in tonight's program. We should pledge to eternalize their message, to carry on their legacy of bravery, of justice, and of commitment to stand by the Jewish people. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight, and thank you all for standing against anti-Semitism. Sending you all my blessing from Jerusalem.
Nachamu, nachamu ami, yoimar Elokeinu. נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוהיכם נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוהיכם נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוהיכם דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו עליה דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו עליה די 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 נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוהיכם נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוהיכם אוי דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו אליה דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו עליה די 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 דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו אליה דברו על לב ירושלים וקראו
Heute ist Yom HaShoah, der
Today is Yom HaShoah, the Jewish-Israeli Holocaust Remembrance Day, the 8th of April. And yesterday, the eve of Yom HaShoah, the Remembrance Museum of Yad Vashem, the Worldwide Commemoration Center, they lit the candles, 6 candles, in the national place of commemoration for the Shoah. And it's a great privilege today that we can be cooperating with Yad Vashem for reading the names. So therefore, I am so glad that Sara Granitza is here with us live. She is the director of the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem. Sara, thank you so much that you are with us, that we can work together here, and also for all your support in preparation for this event. And I would like to ask you to share a few things about the special significance, why it is so important to read the names of the victims of the Shoah. Sara, it's over to you.
Thank you, Heinz, for the entire team for inviting me and for this cooperation that Yad Vashem has with the March of Life. We really appreciate it. With your permission, I will share, okay? So everybody can see. The name Yad Vashem is taken out of Isaiah chapter 56, verse 5, in which it says, "And within my house and within my walls, I shall give you a name and a memorial that shall never be cut off. A name and a memorial, Yad Vashem, asher lo yicharet, which will never be cut off." The Nazis wanted to solve the Jewish problem, to clean Europe of Jews, Judenrein, and eventually to clean the entire world of Jews. This year, we're in Operation Barbarossa, in which in 1941, June 1941, the German army invaded the Soviet Union, and with the German army, 4 units of the German regime, the Eisenskulpen, the death squads, passed from one town to the next, gathering the Jews, taking them out of the town and shooting them to death. They cleaned the cities of Jews, they cleaned the towns of Jews. Every community had to be annihilated of Jews. The Nazis and their collaborators murdered them all. Men, women, children, doctors, teachers, grandmothers, teenagers. For the Nazis, the Jews had no name, no face, no identity. They were all Untermensch, and they all had one fate, the same fate. Once again. Ina Koroshnova wrote in her diary in September 1941, "I only know one thing. There is something terrible, horrible going on, something inconceivable, which cannot be understood, grasped, or explained. Everybody is saying now that the Jews are being murdered, all of them, without exception, old people, women, and children." If you look at this picture that I put down here, this is a class from 1933 with 37 people in the picture. From the entire photograph, only 7 people survived. In the Bible, we're commanded to remember, but we also see this request from the victims themselves. I should like someone to remember that there once lived a person named David Berger. David wrote in his last letter in Vilna in 1941. In the Wannsee conference in January 42, only a few months after the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, 15 educated senior government officials of Nazi Germany and SS leaders sat around a table in the Wannsee Villa to discuss the final solution for the Jewish problem, for the Jewish question. There was no objection, no opposition to the plan of murdering all the Jews. None of the participants showed any disagreement. Within 1 hour, it was all agreed to clean Europe of Jews, not by making them leave Europe. No, exile was not good enough, but by murdering each and every one. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, that a Jew could do to avoid this fate. In the document that they prepared for the conference, if you look at the numbers, in total there was 11 million Jews in Europe. So in the General Gouvernement, there was just over 2 million people, but in Albania, there were 200 people. and they all had the same fate. All of them had to be murdered. They were all numbers for the Germans, not people, with no faces, with no names, with no identity. But we know that behind the numbers, there's a name, there's a story, there's a family, a community. The name of a person has a lot of meaning in our society. When you meet, now Heinz introduced me, obviously he said my name. When we fill out a form, the first question we're asked is our name in your ID card, in your passport, in your driver license. The Nazis wanted to dehumanize the Jewish people, make them Untermensch, and they knew that among many other things, by taking away a person's name and personality, and by taking someone's name away, you take away his personality, his identity. The Nazis wanted to take away the name, the individuality of each and every victim. But we in Yad Vashem do our best to honor the victims and give them back their identity. In this picture, we see a group of children, Jewish girls, that we identify that they're Jewish because of the Star of David that they have on their clothes, right? Easy to identify. They were living in a home at Saint Mandé, and they were all sent on transport number 75 from France to Auschwitz in July 31, 1944. On this train, number 77, there was 1,300 deportees, including over 300 children and teenagers. Upon reaching Auschwitz, 800 of the deportees were immediately sent to the gas chambers for murder. All the children that were on that train were murdered then. We have pages of testimony only of 2 children from this transit. Sara Bulka, who was 9 years old, her brother filled out a page of testimony for her, and Monique Greenberg, who a relative filled out a page of testimony for her. So a lot of information is missing. We don't know the date of birth. There are empty spots here, but he did give us a picture of Monique, and this is her. So if the Nazis wanted to take away the faces and the names and the individuals, we in Yad Vashem try to give them back. The Israeli poet Zelda wrote, "Unto every person there is a name. Unto every person there is a name given to him by God and given to him by his parents." The recitation of names of the victims on the Holocaust Remembrance Day, on Yom HaShoah, is a way of commemorating them as individuals. We seek in this manner to honor the memory of the victims, to grapple with the enormity of the murder, and to combat Holocaust denial and distortion. Before I conclude, I would like, with your permission, to take this opportunity to read out names of one branch of my family that was murdered in Lithuania. This is a page of testimony of my great aunt and my great uncle. My aunt, Yenta, who was 30 years old, and her husband, Baruch, who was 34 years old, and their 5 children. We have here 4 names, and these are the kids. Nachman, 9 years old, Sarah Pesia, 8 years old, Avraham, 6 years old, Chaya, 4 years old. They had another baby, which we don't know the name because the family was already in Brazil. They stayed behind in Lithuania, and there was no WhatsApp to send us immediately the name that the baby was given. It was during the war, no letters, and so we don't have a picture and we don't have a name. Yad Vashem has to work hard to invest a lot of resources in collecting the names and information about each and every victim. And that is why your support is so essential. The Holocaust didn't start with the mass murder. It started with anti-Semitism, with education, with propaganda, with indoctrination. By learning about the Holocaust, by commemorating the victims, we can be more aware of what is happening around us today. Unfortunately, anti-Semitism didn't disappear. It just has different shapes and forms in different times. And even this last year, during the COVID, we saw the rise of unbelievable theories about the COVID and the Jewish people. And it's our responsibility to stop it, to stop the anti-Semitism at its inception, because we know where hate starts, we never know where it ends. By spreading the light, all of us, together, we can build a better future for the next generation. And that's why what the March of Life is doing in cooperation with Yad Vashem, and all of you taking part in this important mission is extremely meaningful and important. As a Jew, as an Israeli, I want to thank you wholeheartedly for standing with us. I thank you for your friendship. At this special time, as we finish the Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, and we're about to celebrate the Independence Day in Israel next week, I really believe, I truly believe, we're living at a time of miracles. In fact, it's up to us to create these miracles. Because when I see you, my friend, from all over the world, from so many countries, so many cities, joining hands together, I truly believe that our children might have a chance of living in a better world. So thank you so much. And many, many blessings from Israel, from Samaria.
Vielen, vielen Dank, Sarah. Vielen Dank für diese Worte.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for your words and your explanation and the awareness we can have for the names. And in these days, and also in the coming days, we will have 25 nations who will have Yom HaShoah events within the framework of our program, and they will read the names of the victims of the Shoah all over the world. And now here in our Zoom panels, we have representatives from so many different nations. We can show them now. It's great to have you with us. And now together with you, we will honor victims of the survivors of the Shoah and their families, because usually the survivors did survive, but the majority of their families perished. And so we'll go to these different nations, and you will give the names of Holocaust survivors and their families, or people that you are connected with, whom you have known. And in this way, today, we will honor the victims of the Shoah, the survivors, and also those who perished. And we begin with Austria. And in Austria, there is an event in Vienna and Unterlang. Whom do you want to honor? Very gratefully, I would like to honor Holocaust survivor and special friend, Grandma Lotte. Born in Vienna in 1931, she had to travel alone to England on a Kindertransport when she was 7 years old. She never saw her beloved parents, Josef and Valerie Berger, again. They were dispossessed in 1941 and deported to Lodz. Mama Valerie was murdered by gas in Chełmno in May 1942, and Papa Josef survived Bergen-Belsen concentration camp but died without seeing Lotte again. Lotte lived full of love for reconciliation and died last year. I am full of gratitude also for her visit as a 78-year-old lady in Vienna when I was privileged to meet her. Thank you. Wow, thank you, Uta Lang. And now we will cross over to Argentina. There are events in 8 different cities: Aregua, Cadamasa, Cordoba, Bienfunes, I hope I can pronounce these places, Rio Plata, and San Salvador de Jujuy, and Ralph Steinmetz. He is Vice Director of March of Life for South America. Ralph, whom do you want to honor? I would like to honor Holocaust survivors Edgar and Sonja Wildfeuer. Edgar was born in Port Hubami in Poland in 1926. He is the only survivor of a large family. All his relatives were murdered. Edgar was in 3 concentration camps and on 2 death marches. As a stateless Jew, he found a new home in Argentina, where he still lives today. His wife Sonja passed away in 2019. I met them in 2016 and have been visiting them ever since. I am connected with Edgar to this day. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ralf Steinmetz, for Argentina. And now we go on with Israel. And we are especially connected to Israel. And it's a great joy to have Elel from Tel Aviv with us. And she wants to honor her grandfather, Simcha Appelbaum. Elel. In honor of my grandfather, my hero Simcha Appelbaum, who is now 93 years old. He was born in 1927 in the town of Malch in Belarus. At the age of 14, when the Germans invaded, he joined the partisans. In November 1942, he and his family were deported to the Birkenau death camp. All his family members were sent to the crematoria, and he was left alone with his father. They worked hard, carrying bricks to build the crematoria, until his father became ill and died. Grandpa was transferred to Auschwitz, where he was also severely tortured. He survived a series of brutal selections, starvation and freezing cold, and was eventually sent on a death march to Gleiwitz. He tried to escape, was captured and sent to the camp at Buchenwald, and from there to Sachsenhausen in Germany. Grandpa was sent to another death march until he was liberated by the US Army. Grandpa emigrated to Israel in 1946, joined the army and fought as an officer in the Israeli wars. Together with his friends, they founded a kibbutz in memory of the families who perished in the Holocaust. Kibbutz Netzer, a new branch that grew out of the cut trunk. Thank you very much, Simcha Appelbaum. It's a great honor to remember your grandfather together. And together we take a look at the Ukraine, and there we have events in Nikolaev and Kiev, and Michael Goldberg from Nikolaev. Whom do you want to honor? Good evening. I want to honor Mitya Bykov, one of 127 Jews who escaped from Bogdanovka extermination camp, where about 55,000 Jews from Odessa, Nikolaev, Vinnytsia, Bessarabia and Romanian regions were exterminated. He was born in Odessa in 1947. In September 1941, his family was sent to Bogdanivka. So Mitya was born in Odessa in 1940. In September 1941, his family was sent to Bogdanivka. After all the shootings and burnings of pigsties full of living people, only 127 survived. In 1944, they were liberated by the Red Army. Mitya now lives in the USA and invests everything to inform the world about the terrible tragedy that happened in Bogdanovka. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael, from Nikolaev in the Ukraine. And now we go over to the United Kingdom, and they have events in all 4 nations, in Wales, Scotland, Carrickfergus, and also in England in High Wycombe. Then McNally is director of the March of Life in the United Kingdom. Who do you want to honor?
I want to honor the father of my dear friend Melvin Goldberger. We became friends when Melvin shared his father's story at the March of Life in Belfast in 2017. Otto Goldberger was born in 1907 in Vienna, Austria. He was arrested at Kristallnacht and was taken to a transit camp. He happened to recognize that one of the guards was an old school friend who miraculously helped him escape. Otto's parents sadly perished, but he survived by obtaining a temporary visa and fled to the UK, eventually settling in Northern Ireland, where he lived until his passing in 1993. May his memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Lynn McNally. Und wir wollen nach Finnland schauen. Da sind unsere Freunde Karin Stina Teitinen. In Finnland, in Helsinki.
They are in Helsinki, where they have a reading of names and also an online conference. Whom do you want to honor? We would like to honor Holocaust survivor Lili Miller. She was born in 1930s in Kaunas in Lithuania. German soldiers occupied Lithuania in June 1941, and in summer 1944, Lili was taken to the death camp of Stutthof together with her mother. When the Red Army approached, Lili and her mother were forced to be part of the last death march to Hinov, where Lili's mother died just a few hours prior to the arrival of the liberators. After the war, Lili's aunt adopted her and she came to Finland, where she's been living to this day. Thank you so much, Kari and Stina Teitinen from Finland. Now we go over to Switzerland. And in Switzerland we have commemoration events and some even public marches in Davos, Geneva, and in Zurich. Michael Ruh is director of Switzerland. Whom do you want to honor? I would like to honor Catherine Hardy, Holocaust survivor. She was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1928, and now she lives in Switzerland. Mrs. Hardy survived the concentration camps Ravensbrück and Bergen-Belsen as a teenager at the time of the Second World War. While she was deported on a forced march of over 120 kilometers in the icy winter with snow and sleeping under the open sky, she had to experience the loss of her mother and so much more. With a lot of discipline and her remarkably positive attitude, she later became a recognized professional and solo violinist. Catherine Hardy has told her harrowing life story at various March of Life events. We've been connected by a warm and personal friendship ever since. Thank you. Wow, thank you so much, Michael. And now from Switzerland we go over to Peru. And in Peru, marches have taken place in La Victoria and Surco, in the capital of Lima. And there we have Sumi from Lima. And Sumi, whom do you want to honor? I would like to honor Hirsch Litmanovich. Hirsch was born in 1931 and was sent to Auschwitz with his siblings during the invasion of Poland. Since he was still a child, at the age of 11, he was assigned to Joseph Mengele, who performed experiments on him. In 1945, he was sent on a death march to Sachsenhausen concentration camp, where further experiments were performed on him. There, a Norwegian nurse saved his life. After the war, he emigrated to Lima, Peru, because his aunt lived there. There, he became a successful businessman in La Victoria, the district where we work. Thank you so much, Sumi from Lima in Peru. And now we continue with the United States. And there they have events and some marches in 7 cities, in Kingwood, Marietta, Kingwood, and other places. And Rosalie Jerome is Director of March of Remembrance in Texas. Rosalie, whom do you want to honor?
We're in Austin, the capital also. I'm honoring my mother, Ava Chrysler. I was changed from Chrysler to Chrysler, many times. Ava Chrysler Eisenstatter Erdesh. who was born in 1925 in Trebisov, Slovakia, and died in 1977 New York. She lost both of her parents in a car accident at a young age. She and the rest of her siblings were left homeless and placed in orphanages and homes. She survived the Holocaust in Budapest while hiding in a hospital. One day, the Nazis came in search of Jews, and being an attractive blonde, she courageously stepped forward and convinced them that there was absolutely no Jews in hiding on those premises. She also convinced my father to leave everything and to escape World War II communist Hungary for a better future in the United States. Her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are successful, happy American citizens today.
Thank you so much, Rosalie. And from America, we take a look to Poland now. And in Poland, they have marches of remembrance and remembrance events in 11 cities. In Gdansk, Gdynia, Kęty, Kielce, Memorial of Stutthof, Krakow, Lublin, Rumia, Warsaw, and Wrocław. And Jacek, whom would you like to honor? I would like to honor Holocaust survivor Jutta Hartmann. She was born in Kielce in Poland in 1922. During the German occupation of Poland, she escaped from the Kielce ghetto to Warsaw, where she joined the Jewish Military Association. She participated in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And after the suppression of the uprising and the liquidation of the ghetto, she worked in several concentration camps in Poland and Germany. She was liberated in the camp of Buchenwald, after which she returned to Poland and then went to Israel. I met her in 2007 and we were friends until her death in 2015. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Jacek Sierka from Kielce in Poland. And now we take a look at France. And in France, we have a memorial event and reading of name in Volkersheim. And Stephanie Dutertre is with us from Paris. Stephanie, whom do you want to honor? I would like to honor Holocaust survivors Lucien and Micheline Tinander. During World War II, they were taken to safety, far away from their parents. Lucien was able to see his parents again, but Micheline's father was arrested in 1942 and deported. Michel never saw him again. Lucien and Micheline were a tremendous help to us, and they've contributed a lot to the March of Life, and we are very grateful for their help and friendship. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And now we take a look from France to Germany, and there are many events and name readings there, and some of them even have marches in 25 different places. Albstadt, Evigen, Annaberg, Buchholz, Bad Langsalza, Berlin, Buchen, Krimitschau, Dornhahn, Dusslingen, Ebersbach an der Vils, Reichstätten, Freiburg, Flensburg, Gernsheim, Griesheim, Halle, Leipzig, Oberndorf am Neckar, Plauen, Schiltach, Tübingen, Vaihingen, Enns, Wankheim, Wittstock, Dosse, Wolfratshausen, Worms. And here we see Dorothy Haas. She's director of March of Life in Germany. And Dorothy, whom would you like to honor? I would like to honor Holocaust survivor Max Schwab. He was born in Halle, Saale in 1932 as the son of the Jewish merchant Julius Schwab. His father was arrested after the November pogroms in 1938 and deported to Buchenwald concentration camps and later to Auschwitz, where he was gassed immediately upon arrival. Max survived in Halle together with his mother and twin brother and later became a professor of geology there. I met him in 2015 at our first March of Life in Halle. Thank you very much, Dorothy. And I believe Max Schwab is with us in person as well. So we send greetings, Mr. Schwab. Great to have you with us. And now to look at Belarus. They have name readings and remembrance events in Svetlogorsk and in Grodno. And now I would like to call on Dima from Svetlogorsk. Who would you like to honor? I would like to honor now Lyubov Georgievna Levina, born in 1938 in Gomel. When the war began, she was 3 years old. She was evacuated to Uzbekistan together with her mother, where her mother worked in a weapons factory, and then they moved to Kharkov. In 1946, she returned to Gomel. Today, she's 83 years old and lives in Svetlogorsk, where I met her. Thank you very much, Dima. And from Svetlogorsk in Belarus, we now look to Ecuador. Today they have events and some marches in Guayaquil, Quito, Abdon, Calderon, and we have Pastor Carlos Acosta from Quito with us. And we are so happy to have him. Whom do you want to honor? What an honor. Can you hear me? God bless you. Well, I would like to honor Holocaust survivor, and this is the picture of Gertrude Zeuker, and we want to honor her like we remember her. So, can you hear me? I would like to honor today the survivor of the Holocaust, Gertrude Zeuker. She was born in 1909 in Berlin. Gertrude survived various concentration camps, including the camps at Seret, Auschwitz, and Siedwerke Klein-Schönau, where her daughter, Gabriela, was born on the 4th of May, 1945, and unfortunately only lived for 3 weeks. During the Holocaust, she also lost her mother, her sister, and her husband. After the war, she lived in Ecuador, and she was a painter and a sculpture artist, where we were able to meet her at an art exhibition in 2005, and we have a friendly relationship with her daughter to this day. And this morning we want to honor her life. Thank you so much, Pastor Carlos Acosta from Quito, Ecuador. And now to go on to Paraguay. There we have remembrance events in Asunción, Nember, and Neuland. And I would like to ask Adán González Benítez from Asunción, whom would you like to honor? For me, it is an honor to honor Holocaust survivor Viktor Federer. Viktor was born in Teplice, Czechoslovakia, in December 1900. With the beginning of the war, he was part of the resistance. In 1943, he was captured and taken to Theresienstadt concentration camp and then Auschwitz, along with his wife and son. His wife and son were murdered there. And Viktor was the only one to survive, and he emigrated to Paraguay. He almost never spoke about the Holocaust. I met his son Pedro Federer this year and heard his father's moving story. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Adán González Benítez in Paraguay. And Jops, it's over to you now. Well, thank you so much. And now we go to Romania. And there they have a name reading in Iași and Pavel Smatana from Iași. Whom would you like to honor? Mr. Laser Finkelstein, survivor of the Iași program and the trains of death in 1941 in Romania. During the program in Iași in 1941, Mr. Finkelstein was a young man, only 17 and a half years old. He had a big heart to help and love people. After so much suffering during the pogrom and the trains of death, Mr. Finkelstein was one of the kindest people I've ever met. He said many times that he forgave the persecutors of the Jews. Later, he was married to Deborah Finkelstein, but they had no children. His memory will be forever alive and respected in our family. God bless you. Thank you so much, Pavel from Iași in Romania. And we'll have a last nation in a moment, Bolivia, but I also want to mention the nations that can't be with us for technical reasons, but still they have events right now: Bogota, Colombia, Thessaloniki, Greece, Siena, India, Kaunas, Lithuania, and also Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And especially I would like to mention our Russian friends who are having events in Kaliningrad and Rostov-on-Don, and also especially Andrea Shimoni in Hungary. Today she has 12 hours of reading names in 15 cities in Hungary, where thousands of names are being read, where locally thousands of Jews were deported from Hungary, so it was really special. Now it's over to Bolivia, and they have events in La Paz and in Sucre. And Alberto Colasas from La Paz, whom would you like to honor? Good afternoon. I would like to honor Holocaust survivor Bela Pinkas. She was born in Warsaw on the 1st of January in 1923. Together with her family, she was imprisoned in the Warsaw Ghetto. In 1943, the entire family was murdered in Auschwitz. Only Bela and her sister were sent to the slave labor camps. In 1945, she was sent on the death march to Germany, where she was liberated by the American army. In 1946, the Bavarian kibbutz Zettlitz, she received her first document with which she was able to identify herself as a person again. In 1948, she came to Bolivia and met her future husband. Bela had 2 daughters, and she died on the 13th of March, 2017. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alberto from La Paz. Now, this was honoring the Holocaust survivors from the nations, but you also heard all the survivors mentioned their families, and we honor the families who perished as well. And we'll go over to Leipzig, to the synagogue of Leipzig, with Rabbi Jolt Baller. He's rabbi in Leipzig and also chairperson of the Rabbis Conference in Germany. Jolt, it's such an honor to be connected to you via Zoom. And Jolt will pray the El Male Rachamin, a special morning prayer, especially on Yom HaShoah. And Jolt, it's over to you now. Thank you very much. It is a prayer of remembrance for the victims of the Shoah.
במעלויס קדושים וטהורים כזוהר ורוקיע מזהירים אס נשמויס הקדושים והטהורים שהוא ושנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנשרפו ושנטבחו ושנחנקו הקידוש השם על ידי הנאצים ואויזם משאול ומויס, יימח שמו וזכרו. בעבור שלנו מתפללים בעד הזה קורס נשמו יסיהם, בגן עדן תהימנו חסום, לא כן בעל ורחמים, יסתירן בסזר כנופו, ליום ויצרוי ביצרוי החיים אס נשמו יסיהם, אדונו יהו נחלוסום, ויונוחו בשולהם על משכבו יסיהם, ונאמר אמן.
That was El Maleh Rachamim, the prayer, especially on occasion of Yom HaShoah. Thank you so much, Rabbi Jolt Bala. And now we continue, and we will hear the story of Helena Weinrauch. And the first thing is something very sad. Actually, we should have had her live here on Zoom, but 2 hours ago, Helena Weinrauch cancelled because of health reasons. She can't be with us. She's 97 years old, and she's a survivor of Plaszow and Auschwitz, of the death march to Bergen-Belsen. And so she can't be with us live, which we very, very much regret. But we've got a wonderful documentation of her story. And so we produced a brief video, her personal story. The documentation is 5 years old, but we can hear her story. And of course, we wish her get well from here to find strength at her 97 years old. But now we'll see part of the documentation of the story of Helena Weinrauch.
There was very little joy in my life, and I always wanted to dance. I survived by sheer willpower. I was beaten, I was tortured, I was starved. The will to live, no matter how difficult the instances were, the circumstances were, I did not give up. Nature and music healed me. My name is Helena Mia Weinrauch. I was born in Düsseldorf, Germany. My mother was a concert pianist. My father was an engineer and a doctor of chemistry. My mother was a graduate of the Vienna Music Conservatory, and she was very gifted. She became a known concert pianist, and she traveled and performed all over Europe. I was not very interested in classical music. I wanted tangos and foxtrot and modern music and what kids like to hear. My sister was 6 years older than I. We didn't get along too well. I was a nuisance. It all changed when I was 15 years old. The year was 1939, and Germany and Russia divided the country I lived, Poland. And we were for 2 years under Russian occupation, followed by the German occupation for the following 2 years.
Germans thrust into Poland from the west and north. In 2 weeks, the Polish army had virtually ceased to exist.
When the Nazis re-entered our city, things changed drastically. Fall 1941, curfew, restrictions, we were not allowed to walk on the street at certain hours, we were not allowed to do anything that we did before. When there were stores owned by the Jews, they were closed. Unless you found work, you did not get any food. And one day, when I was at work, they rounded up 300 Jewish families. And unbeknownst to me, they took my parents and my sister away. I have not seen them since that day. When I tried to find out what happened to them, I was unable to get any answer where they were taken and what was done with them. I left the office after the action on the street subsided. I walked through the streets and there were corpses, bloody people lying on the sidewalk. I ran all the way to my house. And when I came there, the door was open. Things were still on the table, dishes from the interrupted meal. I walked from room to room. There was no one there. I called Mommy, Daddy, my sister. Nobody was there. I realized that they're gone. I didn't know what to do. I sat on the stoop and I thought maybe they'll come back. And I cried and cried and I spent the night sitting on the stoop in front of the house waiting for them. And then it occurred to me that they're not coming back. And when the night ended, I looked through the apartment. I took a few things that were still there. I saw my mother's sweater on the doorknob. I took that sweater, I wrapped myself in it. I found few of my belongings that were not plundered and taken away. And I put it all in a little bag. And I went back to the office. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. The streets were deserted. A new day started. And suddenly I was alone. No parents, no home. I didn't know what to do. The man I was working for, Mr. Papushek, he was a civilian. And he and his partner, who was from Austria, they were very helpful. And when I came to the office, I told my boss, I'm going to the Gestapo. I have no way to live here. And when I told him that I'm going to give myself up, he said, child, you have so much to live for yet. Don't do that. I said, but Mr. Papushek, where shall I go? What shall I do? He said, I'll help you. But when he helped me, and when he got me false papers, and when he convinced me that I have to go on living, that I owe it to my parents, that they would want me to do it, I followed. Since I was homeless and I had nothing, I was desperate. I had no choice. At the risk of his life, the man obtained false papers for me. And since I was fluent in German, the papers were in the name of a German citizen, Elisabeth Helene von Stümpert. And they made up a whole story that I was 19 years old and I'm engaged to a German young man who volunteered for the front and he's fighting for the Vaterland. And I'm waiting for him, and after the war we'll get married. Unfortunately, she started introducing me to her friends. Who were her friends? SS, Gestapo, all the Nazis who were high-ranking because of her husband's position. We became like little friends. And one day she got very excited. She said, my husband got an invitation to a very festive evening. This was given by the assistant to the governor of Poland, Mr. Frank. This was celebrating some victory at the front, you know, our courageous soldiers giving their life and fighting for. We are invited to a very fancy ball, and my husband is trying to get an invitation for you to come with us. I said to her, Ilse, please don't. I am too young to go to a ball. I'm engaged to a soldier who's fighting. It is not proper for me to go to a place where they have music and dancing. That is not right. And I don't have any clothes, and I have never been to a ball. She said, you're coming. There is nothing you can say. You got an invitation for you too. And she borrowed me a dress, which had to be a little bit taken in. I had no shoes. I wore her slippers that had pompons. They happened to be in the same color as the dress. And I used rubber bands because I couldn't walk in them. And she coiffured me. She made me up. I stood there in front of a mirror dressed in a long silver lace gown that belonged to Ilse with her slipper pompons sticking out, with a coiffure. My hair was dyed blonde. Can you imagine me blonde? My hair was blonde, but my eyes were still brown. They were not blue. And she made me up, and I stood in front of the mirror while they were getting dressed in their gala outfits, her husband in a gala thing with all kinds of decorations, and she in a gown. And I stood in front of the mirror, and all of a sudden I started crying. I was afraid. And they walked into the room, and the mascara and the makeup is all smeared, and I'm crying. And they said, why are you crying? I couldn't tell them that I'm scared out of my mind. So I said, I miss my boyfriend. It's not right for me to go dancing and music. Nothing helped me. A limousine picked us up, and we came to a festively lit casino. Casino was the place where the party took place. And all the people there in the Gestapo SS uniforms, there were hardly any civilians there. And everybody was sort of sitting, waiting for somebody to come. And I said, why isn't the meal served? We are waiting for the most important guest of honor. And I said, who is the guest of honor? He is the head of the Jewish solution. I said, what means a Jewish solution? He's the man who decides what happens to all the Jews in Krakow. When I heard that, I could hardly swallow the water that I took a sip of. When he walked in after a while, everybody sort of stood up. A very good-looking young man in a uniform. And believe it or not, he sat at the table right across from me. And I kept on looking at him. I couldn't believe this is the monster who's deciding who's going to live, who's going to die, who's going where. And he mistook my looking at him. He thought that I'm so thrilled by his looks or trying to call his attention to me. When the music started playing, he got up and asked me to dance with him. My knees turned to jello. I could not get up. And Ilse was making frantic motions for me to get up. And finally, the drunken major sort of pulled me up. And he said, Willie is asking you to dance. You better get up. It's an honor. I got up. I was shaking. And when we started dancing, he said, are you intimidated by me? Or are you bashful? Or are you shaking? I said, why should I be intimidated by you, sir? I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I'm shaking because I feel badly dancing with you when my boyfriend is at the front fighting for our fatherland. Well, he waltzed me around a little bit. I was afraid that my my slippers with the rubber bands will fall off in the middle of the dance floor. And I said, would you please let me go back to the table? I don't feel right dancing. But he was gracious, he bowed, he thanked the major for letting me dance with him. And I sat down again. I was shaking so much that I couldn't lift the fork or spoon. I didn't take any food. I was so nervous. Ilse, my hostess, asked me to do a little errand for her, to go to the library and pick up a book for her. I was reluctant to go out on the street, but I couldn't very well tell her no. I left the house. I was proceeding on my way to the library when finally I was stopped by the following order. Stop. You are under arrest. On the street. I turned around. There was a civilian man in a leather coat with a uniformed man. And I said, would you please clear it? You're obstructing my way. And he said to me in Polish, stop pretending, Helena, I know who you are. We went to the same high school in the city where you used to live. Well, I knew there is no way that I can deny it, but I still pretended. I spoke to him in German and I said, I don't understand what you're saying. Clear the way here, or I'll call the police and I will tell them you're obstructing my walk here. Who the hell are you? I said to him. And he said, you have a nerve, Helena. And when he started talking to me more, that we went to the same school, I realized that I have no way to get out of it. Handcuffs were placed on my hand, and the man who was with him was in uniform. He summoned a car, and I was taken. On the way to the car, there was a little girl selling violets. I said, can I buy myself a bunch of violets? I tried to be nonchalant, that nothing happened. He said, you can buy it, it's for your grave. I was put in the car, and they took me to the Gestapo, and they said to me, you better talk, kid, because if you're not going to talk tomorrow, they have means of make you talk. The following day, they took me for some more questioning. The beating started again. I was falling off the chair. 2 teeth were knocked out. I was out of it. They poured cold water over me. They didn't stop the torture. I still did not say who got me the papers. I confessed, yes, I'm Jewish, but I don't know the person who gave me the papers. The 3rd day, they applied electrical shock treatment. And they put burning cigarettes on my breasts and burning cigarettes right under my upper arms. That I could not take anymore. I said, you can kill me, you can kill me, you can kill me. I don't know the name of the man who gave me these papers. I could not betray a man who risked his life. I thought, I'm gone anyway. They're going to kill me anyway. So why betray somebody? And when I did not confess who gave me the papers, they said, okay, you have signed your death certificate. You will be executed tomorrow morning. They took me back to the cell. I could not sit, I could not sleep. I was aching, I was hurting. These wounds on my breast and upper arms were bleeding and hurting me. And I knew I will be executed the next morning, and I was scared. I said, is this going to hurt, or are they going to kill me quickly? And the guard came and he said, you better brace yourself, because they're going to have a good time with you yet before they kill you. Well, the morning came. 2 guards came, not 1. They blindfolded me. And they literally carried me. I couldn't walk. I was beaten, and I was, after the sleepless night and scared, I just dragged my feet. I was in pain. And they took me out, and the cold air hit me. I didn't know where I was going. I was blindfolded. And we went someplace, I didn't know where, and I was put against the wall. That I felt. My hands were tight in the back of me on both sides, so I could not move. I had a blindfold. And in the meantime, while they were waiting for the signal to kill me, they were amusing themselves by shooting around me. And the pellets, they were right all around me. And each time I was going like that because I was afraid that that's it. But it wasn't. They were waiting for somebody to come and say, okay, this is it. And while they were amusing themselves, shooting around me, I heard footsteps. Of course, I couldn't see it. And would you believe it? That was Willie who happened to pass by. Of course, I didn't know that was him, but the voice sounded familiar. And he said, what is going on here? Who gave an order for an execution? I am in charge of this. How dare you execute somebody without my signature? So they told him Kunde gave the order. Kunde was the second in command, gave an order to execute that person. He said, who is it? What is it? He tore the blindfold off me, even though I was bloody and my face was swollen and I was crying and I was smeared with blood. He recognized me. And he said, Helene von Stumpert? And I said, yes. He spat in my face. In that moment, I peed. It was something that I was so embarrassed that I peed. When I recognized him and when they were shooting, you know, I was nervous, I peed. And he says, you dirty, filthy pig. And he slammed me across the face. And he said, a bullet is too good a punishment for you. Where I am going to send you, you will regret every single moment of your life that you were not shot, because I will see to it that the place you are going to, they will give you the worst assignment that exists, and you will be suffering, and you will be tortured, and you will be starved, and you will regret that you are alive. Take her away.
Wir sehen die Geschichte von Helena Weinrauch. Und ich möchte eine kurze Überleitung machen, dann werden wir noch einen kleinen Teil aus dieser Dokumentation sehen. Also Helena wurde, wie sie gerade erzählt hat, in das Lager Plaschow gebracht, später nach Auschwitz. Sie entkam mehrmals knapp dem Tod. Sie überlebte den 3-wöchigen Todesmarsch ohne Schuhe im Winter nach Bergen-Belsen. Durch den Todesmarsch war sie so entkräftigt, dass sie schon als tot auf den Leichenwagen geworfen wurde. Dort entdeckte sie ein britischer Soldat, dass ihr Körper noch warm war. Er zog sie heraus, übergab sie in medizinische Versorgung.
And he provided for her and he gave her a blood transfusion, and so this is how she survived. And we want to see another excerpt from this.
Through hell on earth, that I'm not bitter, that I'm not resentful, that I don't hate. The word hate doesn't exist in my vocabulary. Because hatred and bigotry caused the evil, and the evil consequences of hate I lived through. I travel throughout the country. I go to schools. I talk to young people. I prefer talking to 15, 16-year-olds because that was the age I was at when it happened. And I tell them, there is no place for bigotry, hate, discrimination in your life, children, because I have suffered from the evil consequences of it. And I tell them briefly my story. And my story is being used as a history curriculum in many schools. And when I talk to young people, I tell them, as long as you hate, you are not a human being. But I am not able to hate because then I'm not better than the Germans were.
What a special story by Helena. We would have loved to have her live on Zoom, but for health reasons that was not possible. But Jobst, that is so special, this story of suffering, and yet at the same time I cannot hate. So I do believe that's really special, and I'm very much looking forward to when we'll be able to see her live. But this message I cannot hate, and we must not hate, because when we hate, we are no better than those who did this to us. I think that is the very message for today, and that is so important that we would hear this. And actually, you can watch the entire documentation. We will show you the link of our website. There's a filmmaker, Karen Goldfarb. Thank you so much that you gave us permission to use that. On that website, you can watch the complete documentation. And so that's the QR code, which you can copy or scan. It's really worth it. It's a very special thing. And now we'll hear a song, Broken Hearts, and then we'll continue in our program.
Who knows pain and all its parts? Who restores all broken hearts, forms darkness and light, creator of peace and strife, who sits on the judgment throne, who forgives, acquits, and dons the long robe of mercy, watches and knows just who will heal my broken heart when I fall apart and I'm longing like an ocean with no shore. Won't you just tell me who will now embrace me and promise that I will not break down anymore? Who is, was, and will remain? Who gives life and obliterates all pains, all hands, wings to fly and feet to land, will heal my broken heart when I fall apart and I'm longing like an ocean with no shore. Won't you just tell me who will now embrace me and promise that I will not break down anymore? When I fall apart and I'm longing like an ocean with no shore, רק תגיד לי מי מחבק אותי, שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף.
Das war das Lied Broken Hearts.
That was the song Broken Hearts by Adram Fried, interpreted according to Yaakov Lerner, and thank you to Marcus who sang it. And now we would like to do a fundraiser, because you have the opportunity now to support the work of reading of names. And as Sara Granitza mentioned just now, we want to call upon you to support this work. And your donation, we are showing the donation possibilities now, marchoflife.org/donate. You can either transfer money, give via PayPal or credit card. It's all on the website. And also on the website of Yad Vashem, you can simply click it. And 50% of the donations with ours go to Yad Vashem and 50% go to March of Life, so we can cover the expenses of this event. And we ask you to truly invest into that. Every name costs about $10 of research, but also the work we do does involve costs, and so we want to carry on with this work, because it's more than just remembering. It is preserving history for the future, to make sure things like that never happen again. And you can support this very practically with your donation, and let me encourage you to do that. And so we leave the information on the screen for a moment while we listen to some more.
Vielen Dank für eure Unterstützung. Vielen Dank dafür, dass ihr
Thank you
Yad Vashem und den Marsch des Lebens unterstützt.
for your support of Yad Vashem and the March of Life. And now we want to come to our last part of the program, and I'm really looking forward to that, because our topic now of our conference and the entire program that's taking place in 105 different cities in 25 nations, our topic is Together for a Better Future Without Antisemitism and Hatred of Jews. And that is something that's really talking about the future. And I've got two special people with me right now. Next to me here is Friedhelm Schmel. And on Zoom we have Yair Levi. And he's a musician from Israel. And Friedhelm also is a musician. You saw him on stage just now. And they have a very special story together. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And we want to hear the stories that you share. And then we want to hear a song that you will perform together. And I'm also looking forward to that very much. So let me begin with Friedhelm just now. Friedhelm, this is a very special part of March of Life, that we actually take a look at our own families. And as Job Spittner mentioned just now, it is so important for us to work through our family histories in Germany, in the nations. What is our connection to the Shoah? And maybe you can share about your family history and also speak about what changed in your life when you started thinking about it. Well, it started for me that right at the first March of Life in 2007, I was part of the march. I was able to walk with them, but somehow it didn't really change anything in my personal life. It didn't bring about any change. It didn't speak to me. And it took a few years, and I really tried to find access to this whole topic and grasp it for myself, but it was like a veil over my own eyes. And I started asking questions in my family, asking my grandfather. And because I'm from a Christian family, I thought there's no relation to the Holocaust whatsoever. But then when I found out the truth, that really kind of tore down my entire image of my own family. I was so broken because my grandfather, who was sitting at his desk, and for many years and even decades, my family believed that he was just working in an office in Antwerp all day. That is an image that was true in my family. And this wasn't just an office to write documents, but it was the headquarters of the Wehrmacht. And in Antwerp, the Wehrmacht was responsible for the collecting and deportation of 20,000 Jews to Auschwitz. And I saw this, I read the facts. And everything in me collapsed. My entire image of my family collapsed. And that's the reason why I am here, part of this event today, because I realize it's so important to truly speak the truth, because I felt the same indifference is in me that I need to confront. And Friedhelm, at the March of Life, you share your life story and your family story, and have done so many times. And you're also a musician with March of Life. You've been to Israel. Now, what's your connection to Yair? How did it happen that you got in touch? Well, I actually heard Yair's song Refanah. That was something that was published last year during the COVID pandemic. And I heard it for the first time last year, and somehow it kept playing in my mind. I couldn't shake it off. And early this year, I realized, wow, somehow I want to translate this, because there's something special about the song. And afterwards, I learned that while I was thinking about the translation, it's about healing. And then I knew, okay, well, initially it's about physical healing, but I also knew that if we as Germans sing this song, it has to do with healing of the soul, even healing of nations. And so this is how the contact to Yair came about. And Yair, I know that the song Refanah has been translated to so many different languages, also to Arabic, which is really special. And now Friedhelm and Kimi have translated it and interpreted it in German. What is so special for you about this German version?
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me, and thank Friedhelm for his amazing job that he made. And before I will answer your question, I can, if it's okay, I would love to mention the names of the my family members who killed by the Nazis. There was a very big family, Becker and Pines. I know only I will mention only few of them. Leah Becker, Feger Becker, Pnina Becker, Yaakov Becker, Ephraim Becker, and all other Becker family. David Pines, Dov Pines, Sarah Pines, and all other Pines family. May their memory will be blessed. Yeh zichram baruch. So when I, as a grandson of a Holocaust survivor, I was being proud to be a soldier in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces, and even a captain, but I didn't know that after I will leave the service, I will be, my mission will continue, even with my music. And when about your question, when I saw the message of Friedhelm, I was so moved, and I was when he asked me to translate it to German, I was thinking if it's the right thing to do or not, and I let him do it. One of the reasons was because of a message that he sent me, and he said bravely the family story of that he said before, and he kind of apologized for me of the things that his family did. And I have to tell you that, you know, we can sing together, we can make business together, we can say that we want to heal, to make healing between nations, but the things that I find out with the conversation with Friedhelm, that is want to say the truth, because the only way that we can build relationship, real healing, real peace between nations, it's if it's built on the truth. And I want to say that I'm really proud and I'm really happy to be here in this event, and it's a very big honor for me to collaborate with Friedhelm and to stand with you here in this important event when you are standing with us and telling the truth of the story, even if it's hard, even if it's not good things about your families. And for me, it's a great honor to collaborate with you in this event and in the song.
Vielen Dank, Yair. Und
Yair.
ich würde euch einfach bitten.
And now I would like to ask you, Friedhelm and Yair, maybe you can sing this song together. You will do it alternatingly via Zoom, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And Kim Kash will also play. She is playing the violin, and she has a family history of National Socialism. And so together they will perform Refana for us.
Herr, bitte heile sie, komm her und heile sie. Herr, bitte heile sie, komm her und heile sie. Ich bitte dich, o Herr. Herr, bitte heile sie, komm her und heile sie. Dann werden wir geheilt und stark.
Refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Ana Elna, Elna refana la, Elna refana la, אז נתחזק ונתרפא. נתחזק ונתרפא, אז נתחזק ונתרפא, אז נתחזק ונתרפא, אז נתחזק ונתרפא. אל נא רפא נעלה, אל נא רפא נעלה, אל נא רפא נעלה, אל נא רפא נעלה.
אל נא רפא נעלה, אל נא רפא נעלה.
Wow, vielen Dank, Yair.
Yair, greetings to Tel Aviv. Yafo, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Friedhelm. It is a very moving story, a very moving song. And we will do lots more together, I'm convinced of that. And we will keep walking together for a better future, because this is what it's about. And now we've got two other special guests here with us who represent this message together for a better future as well. And with their music, they also have a very special joint history as well. And I'm very happy to be able to have with me Ben Salomo on Zoom. Yoni, welcome here on our Yom HaShoah event. And also I've got Samuel Haas with me. He'll be coming on stage right away. We'll hear his story in a moment. But we'll begin with you, Yoni Ben Salomo. You are a German Jewish rap singer. You were born in Israel, and for years you had a very famous rap presentation, Rap on Wednesdays, and you left it because you didn't want to stand it anymore because of all the anti-Semitism and hatred there. You have written a tremendous book, and with that message against anti-Semitism is what you raise your voice for in Germany. So that's really special. Now you have recently written a new song, Dedushka. And can you tell us a little bit about the background to the song and the message of this very special song? Well, of course. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation and that I can be part of this very moving moment. And this actually creates fresh hope, your event there, and the way you do it. And so I grew up here in Germany. Ever since I was 3.5 years old, I've been living here. So that's 40 years now. And I actually realized in the last few decades, you actually have to say, that as the way you presented, you know, healing and peace, as Yair said, between nations that should be or could be produced here, actually the truth still actually is lacking in large parts of the population. And to truly face the past in the families, what did the grandfathers do? And I also realized that actually even this refusal of remembering is dominating. And maybe people are doing something or promoting things to not remember the way you do. And so there are moments that I really have to say they make me very angry. Because I believe that all Jews who are living in Germany, or even the Jews in Israel, Jews worldwide, they have actually already opened their arms wide to embrace this healing, but many times I have to realize that in Germany, or in the majority of Germans, this love and this attempt is not finding any response. And then last year, when these like intellectual charlatans, I want to call them, they tried to kind of complain to Angela Merkel, and they tried to really go against the commissioner against anti-Semitism, Felix Klein, and the attack in Halle had not been even a year ago. And I think it is just impossible trying to really tear down the commissioner against anti-Semitism, while at the same time we have an increasing number of anti-Semitic incidences for years. And that, to me, that was the reason to write the song Dedushka. In Russian, that means grandfather. Sometimes we called our grandfather Dedushka. And why I wrote wrote this song was because here in Germany we live because of him. And he kind of trusted this country. And he said, yeah, this German, the Republic of Germany, is not the same Germany as it was back then. And that kind of trust is what all the Jews who came to Germany after 1945. And because of letters like that, and we find so many examples, for instance, perpetrators and victims are switched when the media reports, or a prejudging of Israel in the United Nations, comparing, you can stand in friendship with the worst dictatorships, but somehow with Israel, it's kind of, you have a kind of looking down on Israel. You always know better, and you try and teach Israel. And I actually think that's not right. And unfortunately, that caused me to wonder, are we really at home here? Do people really want to have us here? The trust that we invested, is it justified? And that's kind of what I wanted to put into a dialogue with my grandfather, who unfortunately has passed away now. But this is the song Dedushka. Thank you so much, Ben Salomo. We'll watch the video now.
Ich leb schon eine Ewigkeit in diesem Land, das Land, für das sich Dedushka entschieden hat. Ich war noch klein, wurde nicht gefragt, von der gemeinsamen Geschichte hab ich nichts geahnt. Unzählige Generationen, Millionen meiner Ahnen haben schon hier gewohnt. Doch dieses Land hat sie nicht verschont, so sehr sie sich bemühten, es wurde nicht belohnt. Wie viele Mahnmale braucht es noch, bis uns die letzte Träne aus den Augen tropft? Jüdisches Leben, genau genommen, Synagogen, Museen wie ausgestopft. Oder hinter schusssicherem Panzerglas, bereit für den Nächsten, der einen Anschlag plant. Warten auf das nächste Massaker, als Israel Kritik getan, das darf man ja. Dedushka, du hast ihn vertraut, doch dein Vertrauen wurde mir geraubt. Trotz alledem bin ich hier zu Haus, seit 1700 Jahren ist das zu glauben. Und wenn mich einmal meine Kinder fragen, aber wie war's in deinen Kindertagen? Was soll ich meinen Kindern sagen? Was werde ich meinen Kindern sagen? Dedushka, du hast ihnen vertraut, doch dein Vertrauen wurde je missbraucht. Trotz alledem sind wir hier zu Haus, seit 1700 Jahren ist das zu glauben. Und wenn mich einmal meine Enkel fragen, Sabale, wie war's in deinen Kindertagen? Dann möchte ich meinen Enkeln sagen, euch muss das nicht mehr plagen. Ich blick zurück über den Horizont, ins Land, aus dem die Väter meiner Ahnen kommen. Bevor die Römer sie vertrieben haben, die Ahnen der Väter Europas dieser Tage. Wie tausendjährige Olivenbäume sind unsere Wurzeln in der Erde, zieh uns nicht zu leugnen. Wir müssen nicht länger davon träumen, unsere Nation ist auferstanden, um als Licht zu leuchten. Oh Dedushka, du hast ihnen vertraut, doch dein Vertrauen wurde mir geraubt. Deshalb war ich niemals hier zu Haus, seit 1700 Jahren nicht ist das zu glauben. Und wenn mich einmal meine Kinder fragen, aber wie war's in deinen Kindertagen? Dann möchte ich meinen Kindern sagen, kommt alle her in meine Arme. Dedushka, du hast ihnen vertraut, doch dein Vertrauen wurde je missbraucht. Deshalb warst du niemals hier zu Haus, seit 1700 Jahren nicht ist das zu glauben. Und wenn mich einmal meine Enkel fragen, Sabale, wie war's in deinen Kindertagen? Dann werde ich meinen Enkeln sagen, nie wieder lassen wir uns verjagen.
Wow, what a special song. And very challenging. Because it really confronts us with the fact that anti-Semitism is not a matter of history, but it is for today. And our Jewish friends tell us we have to take this seriously. And so I'm sitting here with Samuel. And Samuel, in your family history, you also thought about anti-Semitism of your family. Can you share about this with us as well? Of course. Thank you very much, Ben Salomo, for being with us. And thank you also for your powerful song and the truth that it transports. My story is actually the opposite side of the coin of that. When I became a Christian, I started researching my family history, and I discovered that 3 of my great-grandfathers were not just Nazis, but they were soldiers in the Wehrmacht. They went to many countries of Europe, and they were involved in massacres, shootings, especially one place that was really on my heart the past few weeks, and it was in Palmnicken, close to Kaliningrad, where my great-grandfather, Bruno Drunk, was part of a massacre, and they murdered 3,000 Jewish women and girls from Hungary, and they marched them into the freezing Baltic Sea and shot them there, and only a few dozen, or just 1 dozen, survived. And that's my family history. And I researched it, and it was not just the past, but I actually discovered it in myself, how I was marked by prejudices against Israel, against Jews, what Jews look like, how they deal with money, and so on. And when I discovered that connection, that this heritage, this thought is still alive in me today, it's still there, and it's actually connected to our everyday life now, I realized it's more current than I cared to think, and I need to do something about this. And this really broke my heart, and together with March of Life, I started raising my voice against anti-Semitism for a better future. And Sammy, you also rap, right? You write songs, and you've written one song that's called Light, and we'll officially release that just now. You wrote it 2 years ago, but it has never been officially released, and we'll do that just now to officially release that, which is great. But how did it happen that you wrote this song? Well, actually, it's almost 3 years ago to write this song, because it was in 2018, in April, when you, Ben Salomo, stopped the rap on Wednesday. You stopped the public performances there, protesting in order to give weight to your voice, to hear it, and to draw attention to anti-Semitism in the rap scene and behind the scenes. I knew your face from Rap on Wednesday, and for the first time then I heard about anti-Semitism that you also experienced behind the scenes, and that concerned me so deeply, it moved me. And then I tried to research, which rapper would actually say something about this, who would make a statement against it on the German side. And I was so shocked. And I was terrified to see that even the famous and well-known rap singers, nobody dared, and nobody really raised their voice, nobody admitted to it. And so I said, I'm going to do it. And I heard a few of your songs, or many of your songs. And Ben Salomo has written one song called Identity, where he uses his name and the names of his father and grandfather, and he shares about his Jewish roots and his identity. And with that question, what is hidden behind your name? What is hidden behind your identity and name? And with your family story. So I took that for myself, and I wrote this song, The Truth About My Identity and My Family Story. And also as kind of the counterpart for Ben Salomo. And I took this one line of Ben Salomon's song, and I quoted it. If you want to know your future, you need to know your roots. And that's what I quote in my second stanza in order to point to that, how this song came about. Wow, Ben Salomo, now what does this song Light mean to you, and why do you think it, because you challenged us, but why is it important to think about our own family history? That's the very moment, is like us as descendants both of the survivors of the Holocaust and on the other hand of those who were the perpetrators of the Holocaust, to actually meet on that joint mountain coming from two sides where we can shake hands and truly get reconciled. In German, it includes the term sons, so it's the sons who get reconciled. And this is what Samuel did here. To me, it's unbelievable that the song Identity that I wrote with this one line where I said, maybe that's my God-given gift because I talked about my name, Jonathan, but the question is, what's behind your name? I truly asked this to the German majority in order for them to truly start thinking about the topic. What happened in your own family history? Because throughout my youth, when I was together with friends who were from the majority of Germans, who were ethnic Germans, nobody talked about it. And I was ashamed to ask because you never knew exactly. You know, maybe I might shame that person or might hurt them when I asked them. And on the other hand, actually, they never asked me, you know, what did your family experience? How did they survive? So there is a veil of silence on both sides, actually, coming from different motivations. But to me, that is unbelievable that Sammy would take this one phrase and would just really do, and that's the essence of what I thought, and that he wrote the song Light, which I think, to me, because I see what is the complexity of things here in the country that actually determines the way Germany is going. And this song has such tremendous potential and speaks to that problem. And in my eyes, maybe because it's not mainstream rap, but actually for Germany as a nation, this is one of the most important songs of maybe the past 20, 30 years. That's what I say for the rap scene. And I truly hope that this song will get that level one day, because music and art, that's why we are artists, you know, to go to the places with our language, with the perspective of the artist, to go to the places where it really hurts in society, to truly address the problems and issues. That's what art is there for. And so that's the basis for us to proceed into a more positive future, as you are doing it. And so I think it's tremendous that somehow I kind of was able to add to the initial spark for what Sammy did. And so now it comes back to me as well. And to me, that's kind of magic and tremendous, and it gives me new hope. And so I am so glad to be able to be part of that release here today. So now there is no more reason why we shouldn't release that. So we are getting ready now on the stage. Sammy will do it live, and then I'll let you know where you can watch it on YouTube. And so I'll vacate the stage and we'll get ready for Samuel Haas' Light.
Ich hab gelernt, dass nur die Wahrheit was verändert. Manchmal ist sie schmerzhaft, doch Lüge ist in Wahrheit nur ein Kerker. Schweigen ist der Wärter, kein Gegner ist härter. Ich will erzählen, was mich das gelehrt hat. Ich hab gemerkt, dass ich geizige Menschen Juden nannte, obwohl ich nicht einen einzigen Juden kannte. Hab gedacht, Juden erkennt man an der Nase, stellte meine Vorurteile lange nicht in Frage. Shoah wurde unterrichtet in der Klasse, doch 6 Millionen Morde sind zu viele, sie zu fassen. Das ist Geschichte, aber mir fehlt der Bezug. Ich bin Mitte 20, was hat das mit mir zu tun? Ja klar, kann man ja verstehen, Vergangenheit soll ruhen, wenn man jung ist, will man leben. So einfach ist es nicht, es brauchte, bis ich merkte, diese Prägung ist ein Erbe, denn es lebt in meinem Herzen. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Es ist wichtig, was heute ist, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Es reicht nicht aus, sich auf die Zukunft zu fokussieren, wer seine Zukunft kennen möchte, muss wissen, wo seine Wurzeln liegen. Also fing ich an zu recherchieren, meine Linie waren Nazis, Soldaten, Offiziere. Das ist meine Familie, Mörder, Vergewaltiger und Diebe, die Juden gejagt haben wie Tiere. Und nach dem Krieg haben die Väter dann geschwiegen. Reden ist Silber, Schweigen ist Gold, was? Ich kann nicht glauben, dass das ja keiner gewollt hat. Ich zeige auf niemanden mit dem Finger, doch die Lügen über Juden leben heute in ihren Kindern. Es ist wichtig, was ich damit mache, denn ich merke, diese Prägung ist ein Erbe, denn es lebt in meinem Herzen. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Heute bin ich Theologe und ich bin Christ, doch die besseren Menschen sind das jetzt nicht. Schon die Kirchenväter und die ersten Theologen haben gelogen über Juden und die Schuld auf sie geschoben. Und diese Vorurteile führten zu Pogromen. Der Antijudaismus steht auf religiösem Boden. Martin Luther hätte sie vertrieben und bestohlen, hat gesagt, man sollte Feuer legen in den Synagogen. 2000 Jahre verfolgten die Christen Juden hart, obwohl Jesus Jude war. Eigentlich sollten wir eingesetzt werden in den Baum, doch wir kappten die Wurzel und die Blätter wurden braun. Ich sehe nicht, dass die Zeit Wunden geheilt hat und glaube nicht, dass Arbeit, sondern Wahrheit frei macht. Heute ist entscheidend, was ich mache, denn ich merke, diese Prägung ist ein Erbe, denn es lebt in meinem Herzen. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht, für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt.
Wow, thank you so much, Samuel Haas. That was his new song, Light, and we will release it tonight at 10 p.m. Central European Summertime on the YouTube channel of March of Life. So you can find it there now, and at 22 hours it will be released, and then very soon it will also be available on the streaming services. You can see it on Apple Music, Spotify, and wherever. So you'll find it there. But we'll begin at 10 p.m. On YouTube. And so let me point out the songs, the lyrics in the other languages are in the description of the video. We've got it in Spanish, English, Polish. You can read up on the lyrics if you didn't understand it in German or English. So thank you so much, Semi. Thank you so much to Ben Salomo. Great to be connected with you. And we'll stand together in that battle for a better future without anti-Semitism. And now I'll hand over to Job Spittner again. Well, thank you so much. I am deeply moved. Thank you so much, Ben Salomo, also, of what you shared. And the word grandfather, you trusted them, but they abused your trust. That's not just something that moves me, but it really brought tears to my eyes, simply because it's the truth. And we can only be on the way here together and hear this. And let me tell everyone who's here and has joined us, it's so easy to talk about anti-Semitism or make a statement against anti-Zionism and anti-Judaism. That doesn't cost you a price, but it needs to start in our hearts. And so this is how the March of Life movement began, because only coming from our own personal mourning, we can know that we can be authentic. And from being authentic, we can raise our voices. And that's only possible when we take an honest look at our family histories. And this is what gave birth to the book on the Veil of Silence that I wrote 10 years ago. And the March of Life movement must never stop. It must begin in our own hearts. So let me recommend to you, please take a look at your own family history. Don't avoid it. Don't flee. And stop fending off the remembrance and the truth. And we need to keep digging in the past, otherwise it will just be a culture of remembering and that won't change and move anything. So it's our great privilege to have this event here together. And I would like to read a declaration. And our declarations, you know, they are quite a thing. Sometimes you can just say that, but sometimes they actually help things. And this is a declaration that's proclaimed in 100 different places, and it helps us to be on the road together and to raise our voice together, to say, together we stand against anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. So I'll read that in a moment. This is declared in 100 different cities, in 25 different languages, in every event. But right from the start, I would like to say this statement is not enough. But this is just the beginning point. Be active, open your voice practically in everyday life. Work through your own history, research your family story, break the silence in your family and declare the truth. And that you stand side by side with Israel in friendship. And let's declare this together, this declaration. I'll read it to you, and I think we sent everyone the same declaration. So, together for a better future without anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. On occasion of the Jewish Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, we remember 6 million Jewish people who lost their lives 80 years ago in the mass murder of the Holocaust. That is why, in cooperation with the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, Yad Vashem, we are reading the names of the martyrs and heroes of the Holocaust. Each name represents immeasurable suffering, degradation, deprivation of rights, persecution, deportation, and murder. The Holocaust was only possible because people remained silent in the face of anti-Semitism and hatred of the Jewish people in Germany, but also in many other nations. That is why March of Life is hosting events at 90, well, by now it's 100, different locations in over 20 nations on occasion of Yom HaShoah. We must not remain silent in the face of anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews and hostility toward Israel in this difficult time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the beginning of the pandemic, anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews have dramatically increased and blatantly show their threatening face in everyday life. We come across hate speech, insults and defamations in social media every day. Anti-Jewish conspiracy theories, downplaying the Holocaust, and anti-Zionism are further forms of the centuries-old hatred of the Jewish people. That is why we, as March of Life movement, are raising our voices together for a better future without anti-Semitism. We raise our shout in 90 or 100 cities and more than 20 nations in a time weighed down by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are blessed by Jewish life in our country. And in Germany, we add, in this year of celebrating 1700 years of Jewish life, we are blessed by Jewish life in our country. And we stand by Israel's side in friendship. Let us never again be silent in the face of anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. So that's the declaration, and let me add, it wouldn't be enough to simply be moved by this event, but let's take a stand and go. Let's make it practical in all areas of our life. And I want to tell you, where you are part of a church, free church, evangelical church, or wherever, it's not enough to simply stand with Israel or travel to Israel, but be part of the movement that raises its voice against hatred of Jews and anti-Semitism. Begin very practically with yourself. Thank you so much, Jobst, for these words. It's more than just words. It's a call for action, a call to truly get moving. And there's a wonderful possibility to do that because this is actually just the beginning of our project, and there'll be more activities in the coming week, marches, name reading, public events. You can be part of that. So maybe there's such a project in your city. You can go to www.marchoflife.org/Yom HaShoah, and there you can find the list of events where it's taking place. And you can't join in everywhere because in some places, because of COVID-19, it's limited. But in many places you can join in. That might be your first step to truly raise your voice. And also you can organize your own march. Get in touch with us. March of Life is a movement that's spreading. You can do it at home in your own city, whether on a small or large scale. Best thing is to have many people, but it's also possible with a few. Main thing is you start, get in touch with us. It is possible to have Marches of Life. And you can also order our newsletter. I want to invite you because you stay in touch with what we do and you know what's happening this year. And as Sara Granitza mentioned, it's a special year of the 80th anniversary of the attack on the former Soviet Union. And so the 22nd of June is a special date because that was a new escalation of the Shoah, an explosion of violence, and all of our German families were involved in one way or the other. There is no German family where the families can say that their family ancestors, grandfather, uncles were in Russia, as they say. They were involved in the murder machinery. We will have events. We're preparing reconciliation conferences in the Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Moldova. And so because of COVID-19, it's not quite sure yet, but order our newsletters and we'll keep you posted. And on our website, www.marchoflife.org, you find the possibilities to register for our magazine, our newsletter. So order it. And if you want to support us financially, you can do it also on the website. It's tremendous support for us, 50% for Yad Vashem, 50% for March of Life, in order to keep spreading this message. So now, could you show the panel once more? I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. Many are still with us. Sara, Yad Vashem, thank you for standing together with us here on Yom HaShoah. It's a special honor. Thank you so much also to Yair Levi. Thank you to Ben Salomo for being with us here. Thank you to everyone in the nations for remembering together with us. Many of you will have their events in the coming few days. We wish you blessing and success in doing it, raising your voices and remembering such a special way. And now, in closing of this meeting, we hear a special song, Vishe Amda, and see you again soon. Let's raise our voices together.
שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם, והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו